All right, we are finally back. We've had a little break from a holiday, and we're back again with our regular weekly sort of hypnosis discussion. But during this is when we usually take some time to talk about some subjects. I tend to be the one leading it. Everyone gets to put some input into it. Now, what I want to talk about today is something I'm have been pondering it, and it's been sort of in the back of my mind for a while, which is giving at least an online instruction of the three-session hypnosis process. So that we'll discuss that here, but sometime next year, probably in January or February, I'm going to do several individual courses here online about each of the three sessions and how to run them and why they work and how they evolved. I think in the past we've talked a little bit about the three-session program. Um, Hang on just one second. I see. Uh, okay, well, yeah, Graham, if you need to mute, I would appreciate it. If someone's going to honk, we'll go from there. All right.
So
The
if you can mute for me, please, David.
Let me see what I can do here.
I'm not quite sure how to mute myself on the phone.
Right, that's true. There we go. All right. Grant has been muted, so excellent. All right. So just talking about the three-session hypnosis process. How it originally started was I would do one session wonders, which is just working with one person getting a really good result. And I used Jeffrey Stevens' hypnosis process. And it was very good. It is very good. The limit of the Jeff Stevens process is sort of the limit with a lot of, let's just say, hypnotists who are very confident in their skill set, which is they do sincerely believe they can accomplish incredible things in one session, and they don't even have to follow up. I don't have quite that degree of confidence that everyone responds that positively. So what I found is that I would schedule a second session, and yes, many of them did do very well, but there were equally people who had challenges. And it's not a result of the person's fault. It tended to be a result of they're in an environment that causes stress. And for example, I can get someone to get rid of a craving and not have a craving for a cigarette. But then I find out that they get pulled over by a police officer. And, as soon as they see the flashing lights in their rearview mirror, all the chemicals flush through their brain and they get the cortisol and the stress. And even though nothing may result from this, they respond to it trying to reach for something that is there familiar to comfort them. And so they may have had a great result with me to help them quit smoking. But in that moment, they realize they want a cigarette. And so that's when I started to realize it's probably a good idea to work with people more than just once. And then the whole thing began to evolve. So with the first session, you might notice it's very familiar if you've studied the Jeffrey Stevens process. I've typically added some things from Jeffrey Stevens, like my version of the symbology process. So the symbology process works incredibly well, just to help create a feeling, an emotion that makes someone feel so good they can't have whatever their problem or their habit is. And then I would go through the part where I talk directly to the subconscious mind. Now, that one effect of just introducing the symbology process and creating an emotional response, what it helped me realize is that people make changes because they have a deep functional emotional response to the change they want. And my transition of understanding hypnosis is you can get a really good result, not just by talking to the subconscious mind, but by creating a very, very strong, powerful emotion that makes them feel so good and makes them feel so good about themselves, they cannot have that habit. And that's where that began to change how I did hypnosis. I'm going to take an aside from that. I have met a hypnotist who helped people quit smoking, and he helped them build very strong emotions. The bad part about it is he would make them reflect back into their life to the time they felt the most guilt and the most shame and the most self-loathing, and he would associate that with smoking. And he got a great result. He said people would absolutely quit smoking, but he'd have people crying, in his seminar room, not crying tears of joy, but tears of shame and sorrow. And after he told me that, I realized that's not the direction I'm going to go. So you can get the same result with very positive feelings, and it's much more ecological. It makes the person feel more whole and complete. So that's the first session. Now the second session of the hypnosis process tends to deal a little bit more with there are two different processes I work within. One is I call the library of the mind, and it's simply a metaphor. And it was a metaphor that I was exposed to very, very young, where I did a seminar, I believe even with my mom, and we talked in the imagination exercise, which was really hypnosis. We were to find a library and go through the parts of the library and get rid of the things we do not need. And I found it very positive and very affirming. And so I evolved my own personal version of that. And the second part of this second session includes what I realize is, I think it's Richard Bandler's allergy removal process. It's where you imagine someone who doesn't have the allergy you have, and then you imagine yourself stepping into that person's body and taking on those strengths. And then you conversely step into that version of yourself and you notice what it's like. Now, I've never, to date, I've never done this on allergies, but it works incredibly well. It's one of the best exercises of modeling for modeling someone to become a non-smoker, for example. If I'm working with somebody to become a non-smoker, I'll ask them, we'll talk prior to the hypnosis session and ask them to imagine someone who has quit smoking, who's gone through every bit of the challenges that they are going through and have gone to the other side, and they feel a sense of strength, they carry themselves differently, and to imagine that person. It could be someone they know, but it could be someone their mind can create. They just have to imagine it. And that becomes, prior to the hypnosis, that becomes the sort of seed of who is going to be on the other side of this glass wall we create. So those are the two processes that are involved in the second session. The third session has evolved a lot most of the time, because usually by the third session, people are experiencing something very, very strong. Often they don't even need the third session, but I want to make sure they feel good and they have their best session that we can then. And the third session, if you have the operations manual, which I can give to anyone who's viewing this if they contact me. They have to contact me, and we'll set up a conversation where we can talk so I can vet them appropriately. But if you have the operations manual, the process that I am currently using is called repair of the mind. And this was something that I developed on my own, so just talking to someone who's a hypnotist I am deep friends with and trust a lot. Repair of the mind starts with an assumption that deep inside the mind, and this is a conversation I have with the patient, with the client prior to hypnosis, deep inside the mind, we have made changes. And perhaps those changes aren't yet completely resolved and finished. You can imagine what we've changed is perhaps a computer program, a mechanism, a machine, but if there's any bit of it that remaining, it's continuing to sort of have a residue effect. Maybe it's cravings for cigarettes, maybe it's a bit of self-doubt. So I do the hypnosis process, having primed them, and I have them go through a process where they lay down on an imaginary bed and they go even deeper, closing their eyes, so much so they can step out of their body and see themselves. And then facing a door, I call that door the inner workings of the mind. And I describe it in terms of, when you open the door, it will be amazing. It might even be overwhelming to witness, but you'll see every bit of the inner workings of the mind. And I have them open the door to just observe that. And then I talk to them about the problem we've worked on, the problem that there are changes that have been made, the problem that still may have some changes that are needed. And then I have them step through the door and search out the problem. And I try and offer as little description as possible because their mind's going to create that. Once they find what we call the problem, we start doing repairs to it. We remove the things that don't need to be there. We build the things that are needed. We make sure everything's connected and optimized, and we add the things that are necessary so it works, doing exactly what it's supposed to do. If this is, if the problem was lack of motivation, and then they build in every part of those changes builds a strong motivation. And the final part of that is you turn it on. And every bit of the really positive, incredible feelings that they experienced, that they had repairing it, they come together and move through their nervous system. Once it's done, they leave the inner workings of the mind, and I put everything they've done there in sort of an amnesia envelope. It just sort of feels like a dream, and it becomes faint and distant and far away. And the reason I do that is so they don't overthink it. The worst thing you can do is have someone getting everything they want and then talking themselves out of it. And then that's the third session. My experience with this is it works very, very well with every one of those 3 sessions. And again, if you do have the operations manual, it will describe it there. It will describe each of them, and you can pretty much learn this just from the operations manual. Starting in perhaps January or February, I'll be doing an ongoing instruction in this. And so whoever wants to attend with this, and I'll figure out what the cost is. Whoever wants to attend, you'll get my direct instructions, you'll have the manual to work with, and you'll have homework to practice on. I encourage you to find someone who is kind and eager and wants to change, who will be your hypnosis subject, and put you through every one of the steps and make sure every one of your questions are answered. And I always like to point out, something I've noticed very personally, having done this for 26 years, is the process that I use is it's very consistent, but it also evolves. When I think back to how I used to do it, I am so far away from how I used to do it. And I've made every little bit of the changes very small and incremental. And you should do that as well. You know, you want to get the best result you can, but you also want to make sure that you feel good about it. So there's a lot of testing, a lot of enjoyment when doing this. And I will point out, if you want to be a good hypnotist, you don't need what I'm giving you. You just need to keep doing it and you will get very good at it. So get all the bodies in front of you that you can and notice what really works. And that's how you get really good at it. So guys, I just want to talk about that. I'm going to open this up to any questions or comments. Does anyone here have anything they want to say or observations? I see no one. Okay. Okay. Well, what I'm going to, oh, Alex, you are muted. So I'm going to ask you to unmute. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Right. What you've said basically, um, it's wonderful to actually understand how to structure the sessions. So that, for example, someone will come in and they want to go smoke free, or they want some positive uh, conditioning put in them. So, for example, they would be in the zone if they're doing public speaking, because hypnosis does have a generative aspect to it as well, an enhancement sort of thing as well. But I was just thinking, once you've completed the 3 formal sessions, what sort of aftercare do you would you suggest for, for sporadic checkups, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
to come back to a person? I was actually thinking there was a celebrity, a minor celebrity, whom I actually assisted in becoming smoke free. The model that I used was basically to assert to her that her unconscious mind already has all the resources you need to go smoke free. So that's what I told her unconscious mind.
Mhm.
That sporadically I'd pop back, and the big question I always wanted to ask was, how's your progress going along? Because it's not a thing that you do the thing and then chop, it's
Right.
finished.
Right.
It's finished, polished, varnished, and put on the shop window for all to see.
Right.
It's an ongoing process. So it's the question you've got to ask someone when you're going in for a bit of aftercare, a month after, 6 months after, that doesn't say something like, have you stopped smoking now? Because
Right.
that might be just the one that sends them falling off the wagon.
I have the question I ask, and I is so what is your relationship with the problem?
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
So what is your relationship with smoking like? And that
Yeah.
doesn't say it doesn't make them think bad or good. It's just okay, what's my relationship with it? And I get a
Yeah.
lot of, I don't smoke. I haven't smoked since our first session, or I'm doing okay, but I'm still having cravings. So it just opens it up for them to be completely honest. So that's how I phrase that. And that's a good observation. And you
Thank you.
had mentioned about the process, sort of developing your own process. I remember when I was even long before I started doing this professionally, and I would read a hypnosis book, and I'm thinking, there's so much to do. I mean, I got to do the induction and the suggestions, and I tried to form everything in my mind so that I could understand it as a sort of sequential process. That got solved when I started learning Jeffrey Stevens' hypnosis process because that's how he teaches it. These are the steps, and so that got solved there. But then once that integrated, I could start playing with every little step and seeing if I could tweak it more sometimes just make it more mine. Maybe not make it more effective, but make it more mine. And that's, again, one of the benefits of having a system to this. So, yeah. Thank you, Alex. That was great.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Questions, comments, observations? All righty. You are absolutely welcome to comment and contact me. Anyone who listens to this, whether it's live here during discussion or through YouTube, is invited to talk with me. And you can reach out me. I give you the links and the emails and in all the places you need to know. If you want a copy of my operations manual, I do require a conversation with you, not just an email, but a conversation. I want to, at this point, I don't charge for this. At some point, as you are finding out, that will probably change. But because you're here, you're not somewhere else. And I deeply appreciate you taking the time, your sacrifice to be here. Guys, I wish you all the very best. I'm going to open it up. Any last questions?
One final question.
Peter.
Has the manual changed since I got the copy in Albuquerque?
Yes, it is a living document, so it is always changing. If I gave you a link, that link is probably still good. So just refresh it and you can download it again.
I'll take a peek at it and see if I can find it. I printed it out, so I have a hard copy of it, but I'll see if I can find the link. If not, I'll shoot you a message.
Yeah, I'm happy to send you that link again. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much.
All right, Graham.
Yeah, quick question, David. Now that I'm parked up safely back in the yard, after you've done the 3-session, are you possibly going to be looking at maybe a longer 6-session along the same sort of things, or would the 3-session model not adapt itself to, say, a 6-session model?
The problem, the more sessions you have, the less likely someone's going to attend all of those sessions. So if you have a 6-session model, get your money up front. That's the only thing I'm going to tell you, okay? But if you have something that's in each session that is going to benefit them, then certainly have a 6-session model. That's I have found I can get really good results with 3 sessions. If I schedule a 4th session, you know, that will tend up either not showing up or saying, no, I'm fine. I'll call you if I really need you. That's my personal experience. Okay.
Right. I'm going to have to sign off now because I've now got to unload the empty cages out the back of the wagon.
Okay. Excellent, guys.
Hopefully I'll be able to join you from the wagon at the same time next week.
Same time next week. Thanks again.
Yeah, okay. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Again, you're here. You're not somewhere else. I deeply appreciate you making that sacrifice. Please take care.
Much.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Take care, everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.